strike ball with them, and they threw a lot of strikes. And really, the difference in that match was the first game. They got out to a big lead, and they just coasted the rest of the way.
All right, today they go for their second win in a row, and let's meet both of the teams now. First, our number 5 seeded team coming back from last week, trying to make it 2 wins in a row from Bow, New Hampshire, Dan Brodeur, and his partner from Newport, Larry Valcourt.
Just missing the 400 triple last week at 399. Danny Brodeur averaging 120, 676 for roll-off score. Larry Valcourt comes in averaging 124 and 663.
And last week, having knocked off the team of Jack Sanick and Ron Willett, Dan and Larry will try and make it 2 wins in a row. And, of course, trying to do what proves to be nearly the impossible, coming up from lower in the bracket to try and come up and win a series championship. Today they'll try and take that second step as they face our number 3 seeded team from Bradford, Massachusetts, Mike Sargent, and his partner from Windsor, Vermont, Stan Mayo.
Okay, and Mike Sargent, his roll-off score was 694. Stan Mayo, 654. So we got a mix there of a veteran with a newcomer to the show.
All right, of course, the winners will move on into our semifinal match next week. And the runners-up will go home with 4th place prize money, $200. And we will tell you more about that and more about the Tournament of Champions, which is just now 3 weeks away here on the Winds. We'll tell you more about that a little bit later on. We've got 3 strings of Candlepin bowling men's doubles coming up here on Stars and Strikes. We'll get it started in a minute. Don't go away. Well, after a match last week in which they threw 15 marks, including 8 strikes, as Dan mentioned, a 399 total, Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt move up the ladder. They beat Jack Sanick and Ron Willett last week, so they take on a number 3 seeded team, Mike Sargent and Stan Mayo, today. Next week, Mark Gregory and Dan Valcourt will be here, Larry's brother, and in 2 weeks, the number 1 seeded team, Joe Ashline and Steve Vadney, ready to go to try and defend that number 1 spot. But in the meantime, lots of bowling to come, and Dan Brodeur, who got his team off to such a great start in last week's match, will start again this week.
As a matter of fact, he was 2 pins better last week than he is right now. He threw a strike the first ball. Leaves the 1 and the 3. Well, he's right on the spear, though.
And the fill is 5, leaving the 4 horsemen plus the 9. Watch out. Good. Oh, he's got it. Must have it. No. The Woods actually stood that pin up by curling around. Looked like he deserved to make it, though. .25 opening pair for Dan Brodeur. And that brings us to Mike Sargent. Mike's last visit with us was back in January on the mixed doubles. He was on the number 1 seeded team with Vi Byron, but they wound up losing the series championship match to John Maffio and Louise Hamilton. And Mike Sargent starts with a spare in the first.
Come on, drop down on it right here.
Nope, Mike pulled that one. Yep.
Yeah, he dropped that ball and got just 2 on the spare. There's a recovery.
This may not be over yet. Let's see. No, that wood toward the channel will block it. There was a piece of wood heading for the 10-pin, but it never got there. And it'll be a 10 for Mike.
All right, come on now, Larry. You're man.
So a 22 opening pair, kind of an unusual score for the opening 2 boxes. Now Larry Valcourt. And Larry, who last week made a specialty of kind of just missing the headpin well enough to get some backdoor action, starts out again with a little break, leaving the 1 and the 8, or rather the 1 and the 9.
Ooh,
and he's got it for the spare.
Off the wall. He hit it thin, thought maybe the ball would carry through, but the headpin comes off the wall. Actually, it was another piece of wood that came off the wall. But it's another mark. 2 out of 3 boxes now. 2 spares for the team of Brodeur and Valcourt.
Wow. Even when Larry throws a spread eagle, it looks good. You know, he's just right on the head pin. And
ball looks like it's about a foot in diameter when he does it.
the final roll-off for this double series, by the way, was held at the Bowlaway in Rochester. Say thanks to Royal Edgerly and his crew up there for handling all the logistics for us.
Well, I have a lot of fun with Royal and his son Jeff, and I won't even mention that they didn't get the addresses and phone numbers for the bowlers. You know that we're searching all around for the bowlers, Doug. I won't mention that.
Well, they know that we have these vast files.
Yes,
you know.
that's right. I mean, they're rookies at that, right? They just...
And Stan Mayo, making his first appearance here on Stars and Strikes, puts up a spare in his very first frame.
It was funny because Royal called me. He says, "What's the matter with your fax machine? I want to fax you the names." I says, "Nothing." He said, "I'll fax you over the names." I said, "Okay, and it'll probably take a while because you're going to give me the phone numbers and the address." "Oh, I forgot to get those." So we had a little fun with that, but we managed to, or you managed to get a hold of all the bowlers, Doug. So.
Well, I told one of the bowlers that in my spare time I'm a private detective, so I'm honing my skills.
Well, the toughest one was Stan, because we were searching New Hampshire and he's in Vermont.
That's right. Stan makes history today, becoming the first bowler from the state of Vermont to qualify for the program. Windsor, Vermont is where he makes his home, and he put up a spare in his first box. Didn't get the fill he would have liked. Actually, Dan, we've had 4 marks already, and the fills have not been what you would expect.
Total of 15 pins on the... no, that's a lob.
Well, several of the bowlers had problems with lobs last week, and Dan throws one here. So this will be his second ball in the 5th. And this will be a spare if he takes them all.
You know, so much for that lob bothering him. Come right back, and you know, Dan doesn't lob usually, and if he does, it's a rarity. He lays the ball right down.
10 bucks.
Somebody who has a tendency to put it out near that lob line each and every ball and they get called on lob, it's going to affect them a lot more because they know they're close anyways. Joe, again this week, is sitting on the edge of his seat. Watching intently that lob line. 3 in the 5 left for Dan. Couple pieces of wood. Come up high in that piece of wood in the front. Drive it back. Ooh, he's going way low.
Whoa.
No, got
Too
ball
far.
that way.
And we're going to have that piece of wood checked, I believe. It's out. May actually roll off, but it's not going to be a factor in the shot anyway, I don't believe. It's settled on the left side of the lane, and it is in play, says Joe Paglia. But Dan will have a clear shot at the 5-pin. And takes it. But 2 open frames for Mike Sargent to work on.
And a little different start this week for Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt. Last week's opening game, 155. Oh, it's a big strike for Mike Sargent.
Well, that's the 3rd mark in a row on lane 32 for the team of Sargent and Mayo, and this was a big one.
This Mike Sargent and myself, we go back many, many years in this game of Candlepin bowling, and I was, let's watch this, almost the double. Wants one of them to go. The 7-pin's rocking.
Now he wants everything to stay.
I was kidding Mike before the show. I says, Mike, you should get up and warm up now. You know, when you get our age, you need that little extra time. And never wanted to put one over on Mike Sargent. He says, I already threw 10 games on the other side.
Nice spare, the conversion on the strike for Mike Sargent.
It was a little high in the wood, but he got a lucky break coming across for the 7-pin, and he's all smiles. He knows he got a break on that one. But he able to take over the lead with that mark. Oh, Larry Valcourt.
No, and Larry is going to have to shoot at the 4-7, 6-10 with no usable wood.
Pick a pair. See if you can get it moving.
And a 9.
Back on that extra line.
Last week in their win, Larry Valcourt and Dan Brodeur had only 4 spares until the 3rd game, but they were throwing so many strikes that it didn't really hurt them that much. Normally, when we've talked about this before, when a bowler or a team is throwing more strikes than spares, that's usually an indicator that things aren't really going well.
That's right.
But last week, that wasn't the case. Tried to convert the half Worcester. Again, 3 weeks from today, here on the Winds, the Tri-State Megabucks Tournament of Champions series begin. Remember, 2 Tournaments of Champions this year.